Hello and welcome to the ORCA podcast. We are back continuing our coverage of the incredibly robbed fifth place best LRG to date, Backyard Survivor 2, Yards Apart. We're fresh off a 3 hour plus deep dive. Thank you, Danny and Jules, for joining me for that long-winded recap, and of course everyone that was in the comments that participated on the day and then participated in the chat. We really appreciate you watching live with us. This will be what we really look forward to. We look forward to all of our shows and our ORCA coverage in the rank down. But I love getting in touch with these winners and talking about their game, having them reflect on their game. I think a lot of these winners are also deserved of their victory, but equally, a lot of them have a level of humbleness, which I just don't understand at all. But that's me, and I'm never going to win. So that's part of maybe humility's the fatal flaw in my game. But irrespective, it's nice to have them to come back and have this opportunity to talk about their game and for us to talk about what was so good about what they did and how they got the victory. I think Jay's very much going to be like that. So I'm very excited to bring her on in a moment and chat with her. Before we get into that, just giving the signposting of what we have left for our Backyard Season 2 coverage. Next week, special episode. Now that we're in the top 5, we're doing 5 episodes per season. We have a special episode per season. This special episode will be a chat with Keegan, the only person to play in 3 of the seasons of the 11 seasons that we're covering. Incredible achievement for him to be cast so often. What makes Keegan so great? We will find out from him. Will he have the humility to say why he is or not? We'll have to see. If it's the Yards Apart Keegan, I don't think we'll see much humility. But if it's the usual Keegan, maybe we'll see some more humility as that who he is normally in everyday life. We then have the tea party, everyone's favorite show. Then the catch up with production, hand out the awards. Awards are open. The voting is red hot. I think this is one of the most interesting and competitive voting we've had so far, because I do think there is a lot of options for all of the choices for MVP, for ORCA, for best pre-merge boot. There are not runaway favorites in my opinion, and I think that's coming out in the voting. So get in and vote. And of course, next season we'll be picking up with Sydney Survivor, assuming Backyard 5 or Canberra 3 doesn't drop before at that point, because then I'll stop this for a while we do those. Okay, 7 people live. That is a lot for me, my first 3 minutes of the show. We normally get in and out. Obviously, everyone's very excited to hear from Jay, so thank you for being here. Comment live. And we're now going to bring her in, the winner of Yards Apart, my favorite pun season. Completely robbed, but a great season and a great winner. Welcome, Jay.
Hello, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you for coming on. I'm so excited to chat with you about your game. I don't know how much you watched of our long 3-hour deep dive, but myself, Danny, Jules, all huge fans of the game you play. I can't wait to get into it. But, I think the easiest way to talk about it is to start from the very beginning. And when you applied for Backyard, let's go right to the start. Are you someone that knew Kyle and Brian, or you saw an advertisement somewhere? Because I understand they had both for this season.
Yeah. Well, let me just first say that this happened 6 years ago, and I am not known for a good memory of even my own life. So everything I say today, just take it with a grain of salt.
Do you not frequently rewatch content that features yourself? Is that not something that you're particularly inclined to do?
No.
Yeah, but we're very different people, because my season, which hasn't come up yet in the countdown yet, was only released last year. And frankly, I am just dying to watch myself again, even though I came off as a complete jackass. It doesn't matter. I'm still keen to see it. That's fine. I know there's people that don't like to watch themselves, to rewatch themselves. It's just not what they're into, and that's perfectly understandable. So I appreciate you might be stretching your memory a little bit, and that's I will help remind about the gameplay. I've just binged this. I just talked about it 3 hours. I am good to refresh what happened in the moment.
No, that should be fine. I guess, no, I definitely did watch my season. You've got that morbid curiosity to see how people might perceive you and how things kind of turned out in the overall edit. But I watched it sort of maybe once or twice after it had just freshly come out, and
Mhm.
I was happy to just sort of leave it at that and hold on to my really good memories that I had. But to answer your question earlier, I Brian and I knew each other through work. At the time I applied, he had just I think season one had gone up, and
Mhm.
I binge watched it. Loved it, like loved it as much as I think everyone in the series does when they first watch that first season and fall in love
Yeah.
with those players. And I just thought, this is awesome. Like, I really like Survivor. I would really love to give it a go. And yeah, so I can't remember how I applied. I think maybe just filled out a few things, but
Mm.
yeah, I think I was just like 100% in from the point where Brian said that there was going to be another season. So yeah.
You said you watched season one. Obviously, it was a prerequisite to watch season one. Eventually, became a challenge. Which players did you particularly enjoy in season one? Can you remember that now, still?
Oh, I fell in love with Rosie. Like, I was a
I
huge
was going to say
Rosie
Rosie.
fan.
If I didn't put
Yeah.
money, I would have put all the money on Rosie. But who didn't love Rosie
Yeah.
in that season?
Who doesn't? Who does not love Rosie in that? And so I think in those sort of early days of Backyard Survivor, I was just quite like I was like, I want to do a Rosie game. I want to be smart. I want to like have good knowledge of the game. I want to play with some wisdom. Um, but like since then, since playing myself, like in season two, and obviously like getting to know everyone behind Backyard Survivors as well. Like, I've obviously been part of the cast as sorry, the crew afterwards, and getting to know everyone from season one. Like, I actually don't have any standout favorites now. I love them all.
Yes, but we don't care about who they are as real people. We care about the characters that were
That's
portrayed, who we're
true.
going to stand. And I absolutely appreciate the Rosie stand. No offense to the final three, but we all wanted Rosie to win that game. And I think we were all devastated when she got voted out. Obviously, Sally, Amy, Tyrone, lovely people. I'm sure it would, Sally's happy to have won them. To the other two would have loved to have that further in the cap. But as a viewer, Rosie was captivating. Going on to
Absolutely.
liking Rosie's game, you identified in the first episode, one of the first confessionals that we meet you, that your plan is to get a meat shield and puff up his ego and sort of have him come in front of you. Were you looking for your own version of, oh my God, I forgot his name, Rosie's meat shield from season one? Comment me out.
Um, Yeah, call him out. I was, yeah, in some ways, I think because at that point in my life, I was watching a lot of like early, like US Survivor, and like I think that included like Sandra and all of those folks. Just being really like savvy and not standing out was kind of my main objective, and I knew that it being like the first few votes, I was going to be surrounded by big loud players, and I knew that I had like an okay like physical ability and okay like mind for puzzles and stuff like that. I didn't fear like any weaknesses, I guess, necessarily for challenges. And I just wanted to sort of like hang back for a bit, and then maybe in the late game start trying to show up a bit more. But yeah, certainly I was like, I'll just find someone who's big out there, and I'll just sort of chill with them for a bit, and yeah. So obviously I did a little bit.
Well, you're one of your meat shields. Keegan is in the house. And
Hey,
perhaps to play
Keegan.
nervous control, he's reminded me that the name I was looking for is Ren, and that is exactly correct. Apparently, Rem Kyle is correcting. But yes, that is who I was referring to. Thank you very much, Meat Shields, in the chat. You get into your tribes. Do you recall how you felt? And if you don't, this is a very specific question, and it's fine. When you found out you were going to be in a tribe of four, that's a very small tribe. It's very exposed. Did you initially feel, oh, this is, no one wants to be the first boot? It just feels high risk of first boot to be in a
Yes.
four-person tribe.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I think I was still just trying to get my footing as far as like where I stood socially and what kind of impression I wanted people to have of me, in the sort of first impression sort of part of the game. Um, So I just remember just being like, "Oh, cool, the game started and there's all of these people around me, and I just don't," yeah, like you said, I just don't wanna be, standing out for the wrong reasons. I don't wanna, yeah, I just wanna, yeah, get some footing. So, yeah, as far as, like, a smaller tribe, maybe that did make me feel a little better because I didn't have to run around like a headless chook trying to, like, manage, people's impressions of me. There was only 4 people I needed to look for
Mm.
kind of thing. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I just remember just being like, um, just desperately like searching for some stability and someone to hold on to, and obviously I found that eventually.
Into Neil,
It's
firstly.
Neil, yeah, and my
And
girl.
how quickly did that connection build when you got to the blue? Obviously, there's only 2 girls and 2 boys, and sometimes in these games or in life, you can perhaps build a natural connection by something as simple as shared gender at the beginning. Obviously, people build relationships and all sorts of things, but just in an intense environment, things are going to happen quickly. You either bond with someone you don't. And it seemed like you and Tennille clicked really well, noting that you had two, not just one, but 2 very significant sort of alpha personalities and the men hanging around with the 2 of you.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you're right. What's shown on the screen, there was like a pretty instant connection with Tennille and myself, and I guess what I saw in her was this like playfulness, sincerity, like authenticity that I really loved. Like we could kind of like, share things with each other and really feel like we were listening and supporting and trusting each other, which is great in the early game. Um, I also did like I had this real, and maybe Keegan can comment on this when he comes on later, but like I had this real sort of like connection with Keegan where he was really trying to play the like, oh, I'm really nervous, I don't really know what I'm doing. Like he really was giving me like a vulnerable sort of side. And I think that was intentional. I think he planned that, and
Did you
he did
buy
it
it?
really well. I absolutely bought it because my nature is to sort of take people in under my wing. And so I remember saying to him something along the lines of like, "It's all good, I got you." I think what it was, he was saying, "Oh, I've never been on camera before, and I'm really nervous." Turns out he's been on camera plenty, but I was like, "No,
And
it's
now,
all good, I've got you."
and now he's a stage actor. Like he's obviously very
Yeah.
keen to be in front of people.
Yeah, yeah. And so I was like, "Oh, I can take this guy under my wing." Didn't necessarily like pin him as a meat shield at that point, but certainly was like, "Cool, I'm making a connection with this guy. He obviously is looking for someone to look out for him, and I'm looking for someone to look out for me as well." So I definitely had those 2 connections going on early on with Keegan and Tennille.
And you, of course, felt that perhaps the most genuine and real person in the tribe was Jake. Or
I don't
Jake's
know.
father.
Like
Jake's
it took
father.
me a
I'm
little
wrestling
while to
through
figure him about. Yeah, it took
Jake.
me a while to figure him out. And no, like honestly, I think that the 4 of us were all like just there to support each other. We weren't like I didn't get the sense in the very like sort of early parts of like getting to meet each other that we're all like out for each other or anything. We're all just like really committed to like, okay, we're going to make this what we can. We're going to give it 100% and just see where it goes. So Jake was part of that too, absolutely. And then as we got to sort of see him and get to know him and his gameplay, like obviously our alliances maybe sort of swayed more towards each other and less towards Jake because we just weren't getting as much back as what we were hoping. He was definitely playing his own game and yeah, doing his own thing.
It was very full on very quickly, and that doesn't gel with people always. I look. I mean, I'm not blaming him. I doubt you've watched my season, but I was particularly full on too early, and that just drives people up the wrong way sometimes, and we all react in these circumstances. You don't know how you're going to react to you there because it is a real pressure situation.
Yeah.
The Now you do speak of Keegan's vulnerability, and you speak of the Blue Tribe being a bit happy family. And I like that you've given this to me because this is what you were like, at least going into the first challenge and for most of the first episode. Except you may or may not recall this, but once Jake, who was elected captain, had the opportunity to choose an advantage or fruit for the tribe, everyone's sure he's found an idle clue, and then so he's a bit sneaky, but you probably expected it a bit by the way he was playing. Then Keegan finds the idol and doesn't tell, and Tennille sees him and doesn't tell you both the truth. And so your happy little family goes to, we had a guy going up for himself, getting an idol. The other guy finds it and hides it from us. Now it's just me and Tennille. And that happens pretty quickly.
Absolutely, yeah. And there was a time where, and I have this memory in my head, we were just like rummaging through the bush, like looking for this idol, kind of as a group, but also kind of going off in like our own sort of by ourselves for a while as well. And yeah, look, I think because you're so early game, you just don't know what truths are actually truth. So definitely like knowing that, like, or finding out that Keegan had apparently found an idol, I was kind of like, okay, I'll take that as like 50-50 truth for now. And then like going to Keegan as well, I remember going to him and saying like trying to suss him out to see like, does he look more nervous? Does he look like maybe he's hiding something from me? I didn't get that. And he was really good at hiding and covering his tracks. So I was trying really hard to give him a little bit of a benefit of the doubt as well. Though, yeah, obviously as the game went on, I sort of was kind of sort of cottoning on more to what was going on for him. But yeah, early on, I think I was just trying to I wasn't going to like jump fully onto the Keegan's hiding something from us bandwagon. But certainly that started to like, sow some seeds of doubt.
Do you recall it? You may not recall this because it never actually eventuated into something. But in that first episode, after these events that have occurred, you and Tennille actually come up with a plan. This is before you go to the challenge and know you're not going to tribal council. And the plan between the two of you is, because there is this risk that Keegan might have the idol, that you will make him think you're voting for Jake, which I think he would have believed. Jake goes, but then you actually vote for Keegan, so that if you go to tribal again, you and Tennille could then vote out Jake, and the two of you would be safe in a 4-person alliance. It seemed like that was a bit of your backup plan. And, we were watching and talking about it last week, and what a fantastic plan that was, and well set up. Do you recall making this plan?
Yeah, I have a vague memory. Obviously I was listening to the episode last week and I was like, yeah, that sounds like something that Tennille and I would have come up with. That sounds like go us. And yeah, I mean, it makes total sense. But yeah, I guess like we were just trying to remove any uncertainty, because obviously we'd started to doubt our colleagues, our fellow players. So yeah, we're just kind of in an attempt maybe to flush something out. And yeah.
Do you think that would make it's an interesting, it's a hypothesis. I'm going to ask you a hypothetical question for something you might have done 6 years ago, so it's very, very difficult. But you've just told to me about how you actually had a bit of a bond with Keegan early on, which is really interesting because it informs a lot of the game later on. And you have fallen hook, line, and sinker for his wounded dog routine and how nervous he is. Jake is obviously giving I'm a confident, like, how good am I approach, so you might not feel as bad about booting him. But you were potentially coming up with a plan to blindside the wounded puppy you'd offered to protect. Which is the most sensible plan ever. Like, it would be a super strategically sensible plan. And we all know the actual Keegan would have only applauded such a move and not have been upset. But do you think you could have pulled a move off like that so early, or do you think you would have perhaps felt too guilty about it?
Look, I think that if Keegan, like this, I guess more as me as a person rather than me as a player, if Keegan had turned around and said, that was really unkind, I can't believe you did that, I would have fallen apart. Like, I would have been like, I'm so sorry. Or even if he was like, this is like, Jay, you got it completely wrong, like Tennille's got an idol and she's trying to play you, I would have been beside myself as well. I just didn't get that sense, I guess. And yeah, like I guess if he, and like I said, like if he did have the idol and we did make that play, I think that he and I probably share that, like, just respect for the gameplay. Like, I would have been like, cool, like, I respect that you were trying to protect yourself and lie. Perhaps it wasn't the right call at the end of the day. I've made the right move, and he probably would have agreed, so
Oh, he would have. He might have been high-fived you on the way out. What a good move it was. That's the sort of
maybe.
person. Yes, he's a good sport, Keegan.
Yeah,
So I think
yeah.
he would. That said, it's very hard to go early, particularly if you've got some tickets on yourself. And I'm not saying he's got lots of tickets, but I think it's hard for anyone to go up first. Really, like it's a really
100%.
tough thing.
Yeah.
You go into but this doesn't happen. These are all hypotheses and hypotheticals that never eventuated, because you've won the challenge and you've had you've won it completely, and you've had the opportunity to bring someone over. Your tribe selects Tristan. Do you have a recollection of how that came about, and why Tristan was chosen of the 4 greens?
I don't have a memory of how we made the decision, honestly. I want to say, and maybe like if anyone's in the chat, they can chime in. But I want to say it was just sort of like we all put our heads together and just chose him. But maybe Keegan, if you're around, you can remember better than I can. Yeah, but I do remember what it was like having him around. So he obviously, like, we shared some time with him, and it was definitely awkward at first. We're just trying to like help him to feel comfortable, and I think Keegan was working.
Sorry, you were helping him with that. Jake wasn't. Jake was just grilling him with questions.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, I was going to say that was Keegan, but it was definitely Jake. Now you've jolted my memory. Like I have this memory of like, yeah, someone was really trying to suss him out, kind of thing. But then I also have this memory of like, yeah, there was like actually something genuine. It was like a nice connection there as well. So it was definitely useful to share that time with him, and like similar to like my first impressions with Tennille and building that relationship. I think that he was just genuinely like there to play the game, genuinely like here to listen to what we had to say, and I really respected that and was interested in working with him.
My vibe from Tristan, just jumping off the screen and with nothing else but the screen, is he absolutely gives the vibe of a nice person who's smart and strategic, who will listen to you, who will share ideas, who won't try and dominate anyone. And that's the sort of person that people want to work with. We discussed in the chat last week that with the 4 of them, Jess and John were already standing out as such big personalities, even across the mat, that it does make sense to look at a Tristan or a Sarah, because they might be more interested in a bit of back and forth dialogue. Though Keegan says his memory is it was a team decision and he had a cool hat, which he did.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you, Keegan.
He actually had more than one cool hat, because when he arrived to the show, he was wearing a different colored hat, and then once he was sorted into green, he then had a green hat. So he was very well prepared for hats.
I almost think that the hat helped us decide, because we didn't want to offend anyone by getting their name wrong. I'm pretty sure we just said like the guy with the hat, didn't we?
That would make sense. Yeah, hat guy. I think you said, you could have said tall girl or tall guy, but also picking something that has nothing to do with their person, like their physical appearance or their personality or anything, is a really safe way of just picking someone, isn't it?
Yeah.
He chose to wear a hat. He's proud of the hat. You go the hat guy. So he comes along, and this ends up being a huge advantage for a long part of your game. Obviously, by the time we get to the merge, things get very messy very quickly. But for the balance of the pre-merge, this Tristan relationship that enables you to then form a blue-green alliance on your swap tribe is fundamentally a great outcome for yourself and the people that are with you to pretty much skate through that next period. Do you have a recollection of when you got together with that tribe? You're still with Tennille, which I'm sure was very pleasing for you. And you've got Tristan, who you've got good vibes for. And you're now meeting Jess, who, for all intents and purposes, you've been aligned with by virtue of this blue-green thing. Do you remember your initial impressions on Jess, noting that you two go on to have a very powerful and strong relationship for the rest of the game?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember Jess was just so welcoming. She was just like, and sparkly and bubbly, and like I think that's just the best parts of Jess, you know. And so I think when Tennille and I were faced with this sparkly, bubbly, welcoming person, we were like, yeah, absolutely. Like, we'd love to get to know you more. And she just didn't present as threatening or like there was anything, you know, untoward going on. And so we just sort of, yeah, we gelled, and it was easy. It was like so easy just to, yeah, create an alliance with her and feel comfortable with her and work with her. Yeah.
Easy for you. Horrible outcome for Casey, Daniel, and AJ, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and we talk about that. We'll get into those groups. Did you feel? I guess, like thinking out loud, and you know, it's you look at the tribes once they get formed. And did you feel that your tribe could potentially struggle in the challenges, or maybe after the first challenge, which went quite poorly for you, where you had to run and carry the bags? Did you think that maybe we will be going to a few tribal councils, but that's fine because we've got a core four?
Look, not at the time. It didn't occur to me. Maybe I was just like too optimistic or something, but I was always just like every tribe, every challenge we went into, I was just like, yep, like we're strong, we have every chance, like we just don't know what could happen. But maybe that's just me being competitive and optimistic, I don't know. But that running around in a circle with sandbags challenge, that, oh my gosh, I'll never forget. It was so humid and we were so sweaty, and I think we're all just trying so hard, and it did not happen for us, not in the slightest. It was just incredible how much we lost.
Well, it's an interesting say that, like, oh, one tribe's weaker than the other. It's not that at all. I don't think your tribe, by any metric, would be considered a weak tribe. It's just, and would probably be better than a lot of tribes in LRG or Survivor history. It's just their tribe just ended up being stronger, and with people like Keegan and John and Stephen and Mitch and like Jake, and like they're all there, right? Like, and it's not that you guys are in any way weak. It's just, you got some muscle as well. Like, it's just that on balance, that's a bit stronger. When you throw a challenge like running and carrying heavy bags, like that's always going to be a tricky one.
Absolutely.
I know some of the other challenges were perhaps more even. There was some memory and whatnot. Do you have memories of coming into this tribe? And look, a lot of this isn't particularly relevant for what then goes on too much, but there is a lot of relevance. But I think what's important here is the conversation. It's worth bringing up the conversation that you have with Casey when she's very much looking to save herself and potentially Dan, and she's not so aware of how strong this green-blue thing that is formed so strongly with the Tristan swap. She brings up to you that it was very difficult for her to vote out a woman, that they had voted out Holly, and that she didn't like that feeling. I don't know anything about you personally, but I'm sure you are someone who's very proud of being a woman, and that wants to. You're not getting. I don't think the vibe I get from you is not a person who's like, well, we're just going to vote out of the men because that's what we're doing. But still, like in these Survivor games, the women will get voted out really early sometimes, and it sucks. And like no one wants to be a part of that, right? So I think that's sort of where Casey was trying to get you, and you sort of said, yeah, I get all of that. But then she raised this at Final Tribal Council, which I know was then like 16 hours later. When she raised that at Final Tribal Council, were you like, oh my God, like this is being brought up? Yeah, this is hard. Like, of all the questions at Final Tribal, I think it's the one that you seem to find the most confronting, and perhaps didn't answer, as strong as you do. You ask your Final Tribal Council is brilliant, but that one I think seemed to set you a bit off. Like, oh, was I being genuine with her? Was I not? Like, that was probably, I imagine, a very difficult situation for you. This is just my thoughts projecting onto you. I'd love to hear how you felt in that circumstance.
Love this question. So let me think. So I did really resonate with what Casey said about voting off women. I think both Casey and I shared that reluctance to get rid of females from the game early on. And I think it's because we both just, yeah, like you said, we're aware of how often women get voted out, before merge, and we just didn't like that. And I think Casey also really appealed to, like, my feminism and, like, pride with, like, female strength. So certainly, like, it did make sense, and I definitely yeah, agreed and empathized and that sort of thing. I think though one one of, like, the smartest things to hold in mind when playing Survivor is, um, like, yeah, I guess taking everything in a perspective, right? Like, if you hold tightly to something that someone says at some point in their game, and you put your blinders on and tunnel vision, then you lose the opportunity to take in all the other information of what's going on for you around you. So whilst I, like, wholeheartedly, like, was having that conversation and agreed, and I was glad that Casey raised that. I wasn't also in a position where I was going to let that one thing define how I played the game for the rest of the game, I guess. So, yeah, I guess that's the duality of sometimes decision making in Survivor.
And I agree, and that's very, very well said. I think, there's other arguments that you had up your sleeve as well, and perhaps this is what you're alluding to in some way, that, Casey was appealing to the feminist in you, but equally you'd formed an alliance with two other incredibly strong women, and a man who appeared, or at least had the appearance, and I think is going to be a strong ally in both senses of the word in the game and as an ally to women. So I don't think it's like you were, like, hooking up with the misogynists. Like, you had a very, so, and equally you weren't voting for Casey in that vote. You were all voting for Dan. So you weren't voting until there was a revote. You weren't actually writing her name down. Who knows what could have happened on the next vote if she had stayed? Maybe you would have campaigned for her to stay over AJ. Maybe you would have looked at this more in that way. But at the time, I don't think you were being in any way disingenuous. I think, though, from your perspective, by the time you got to Final Tribal Council, those details have probably long slipped out of your head because of the pain of the day. And for Casey, of course, this is the last thing, or one of the last things she heard before you voted her out. So for her, that's something that remains very relevant. So I think you're both fair in your positions and why she wanted to raise it. But I don't think you were being disingenuous with your statement, but I don't think, and I don't know if you were giving me the vibe of wanting to make the arguments I just made for you in Final Trouble, but I think they're very legitimate about what you were doing at the time. So I don't think it undermines you in any way as a person, having that discussion and then that vote proceeding the way it did.
I'm really glad that you got that impression from me from the edit, so that I didn't have to remember all of that and tell it to you just then, because it feels, I'm agreeing with you. That's
that's what I like to do. Thank you. I appreciate that. I do like it when people agree with me. Thank you. And we talked about this on the show last week, of course. Casey, if Dan had in any way tried to involve Casey in his plan, which he should have, it would have been super sensible. Then he could have got Jess out, and the two of them could have survived. And that could, I think, broken up your whole tribe wide open for who knows what could have happened. If Jess goes, I think it's complete implosion and power imbalance, and it's anyone's for the taking as to where those numbers.
And it would have been such an interesting and completely different season.
Yeah, and frankly, I'm glad it didn't happen, because I think Jess being on our screens for a long time in this season is one of the many things that make the season great. But it is still baffling that Dan did not bring Casey in on that plan, because there was, you'd have to assume you guys would split the votes. And even if you didn't split the votes, then he's still got a 1-1 situation going on. and it's not going. Well, I guess if he didn't split the votes, he had to assume he'd split the votes. Anyway, that's what's happened to Dan. How do you remember how it felt? Were you surprised that Dan and Jess were having such public disagreements, such a public blow up? Like Jess was not making her. I know it was her style to sort of be upfront and honest with everyone. But it's one thing to sort of be upfront and honest about, hey, look, we're voting you out, we're sorry. But another just to be like quite seemed like just telling Dan that she wasn't really into what he was doing and causing quite a clash of heads. Did that surprise you that people would play that way?
I so wish that I remembered this part better, because I think there was some reasons for us to, like, I just remember having some doubts about him, and I think that was just Jess's best approach at trying to figure that out and to sort of like, I don't know, like, yeah, I really wish that I could answer this better, but I get the sense that I just don't have the memory for it. Sorry, you might have to ask them.
It's fine. Look, in the end of the day, that was something that was happening around you, not to you. You were just standing back and watching the show to some extent. And that's no problem. We'll chat with Jess on the tea party, and we can get all the saucy gossip of a feud with Dan when we're there. So then Dan goes, no surprise. Do you remember that Dan had the opportunity to mutiny and where he was obviously getting voted out and decided not to? Do you remember? And I think you said that if you saw him stand up or even attempt to stand up, you were going to jump up like a lightning rod first so that you would mutiny and block his move. Do you recall that and talking about that?
I do remember that, and I remember feeling it very passionately. Like, I remember just being like, yep, absolutely, like, I will not let him do this. I just can't remember, like, why I was so passionate about it. Like, I think what I just wanted to do is just, like, protect our numbers in the game, and I was worried that if he jumped ship that, once we merge, like, there will just be this wall of people trying to come for us. So, but I don't know, like, maybe it was more complicated than that.
Because you would have then obviously flipped onto a tribe. You would have Keegan and Jake, and for all intents and purposes, you had an alliance there. But as people I've played would like to say, and I think that they're quite correct, your alliance doesn't mean anything until you voted together. Once you actually vote together, then you have an alliance. Other than that, it's just words and promises. So you and Keegan and Jake didn't have anything like that, and I think that's pretty evident in this game. When we get to the merge, the groups that form are the tribes that have voted together at that time, people that have stated and proved trust. So you could have ended up with Jake and Keegan. You don't know how it's going with Jake. You could have been in a really exposed situation switching over there. They might have been, great, let's just vote her out. I get the vibe you weren't thinking about that. You were just thinking about keeping Tennille and Jess and Tristan safe.
Maybe. I mean, it'd be nice if I just agreed and said that I was like some sort of selfless player, but I think I was probably thinking more strategy, but maybe not strategy beyond the point of how that would impact the people that I was aligned with. And maybe I was thinking more bigger picture where I maybe needed to think more about myself.
Do you think you would have been safe?
I would have hoped so. I think that by introducing a bit of chaos to the tribe that I was entering, maybe I could just sort of fly under the radar enough that maybe they'd already had some thoughts and some talks, and that maybe I would just be a number that someone could pull in rather than a target. And I wasn't certain that I had like any reason to be targeted at that point. I think I was like, if I was able just to sort of go in and then, snuggle under my meat shield's wing, then maybe I would have been able to avoid any sort of vote out at that point.
I don't actually think it's a maybe. I think we can say that's for certain, because Jake thought he had one plan going with 4 votes. He didn't have any of those votes, but I'm sure he would have leaned over and whispered to you saying, vote this person. I can't remember who he was targeting. I think it might have been Mitch. And then Keegan would have leaned over to you and said, "We're all voting Jake," and you probably would have listened to Keegan, and you just would have jumped on the. So I don't think you would have actually had any issues. I think that's what would have happened. They weren't going to change the vote. And you've been like, okay, cool. That's what we were going to do back at the old Blue Tribe, according, maybe, but that was the known consensus between yourself, Tanu, and Keegan. I'll just go along with that. So I think you would have been safe, and you could have made a big move. You could have saved your tribe from giving them the easy vote running with Dan, and then you're making connections all over the place, and then you're probably just a huge threat coming into merge. But like sometimes you don't need to think that far ahead. You just need to think about, okay, what can I do here? Okay, that's some really great thinking. I like getting into that. I guess this is one more quick thing before the merge. I don't want to go into too much detail, but you guys lose again. You got a clear 4. You just straight up tell AJ, "You're out, mate. Sorry. We think you keep telling him you think he's got the best chance of winning," which, surprise, you actually were all correct. But the I don't buy it. If I'm him, I'm not buying this. I'm number 5 and you're booting me out, and you're all heartfelt about it. Maybe you felt bad because he seems like a really nice guy. But, did you actually think he was going to take that boot so as magnanimously as you guys all sort of thought he was taking it?
I don't know. I do all of my memories of that time. They're just all emotion driven, and I just remember us at least Jess, Daniil, and I actually genuinely did feel bad about it because it was quite a landslide. But I don't know. In hindsight, I recognize that if someone said that to me, I'd be like, "Oh, get wrecked. That's not how I want to go out." Yeah, I don't know. I think we're just trying to do our best to not have him take it so personally, but I don't think we really had the perhaps the interpersonal insight to do that in a way that was I don't know, respectful to him being a really competitive player, or upfront and honest and genuine in the sense of gameplay, if that makes sense.
I think that's I think you were trying all of them. And I think that's a very good point that you're making. And maybe the best way is just to make it clear he knows it's not personal, and the rest of it is what it is. Saying, "Oh, you can come back and then win and come back to us," whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was personal. He seemed like a lovely guy, based on the screen. I've not met in real life, but the person I met on the screen seemed lovely, and I genuinely believe that the 4 of you, who also seem like lovely people, were having difficulty with that. Wasn't as easy as voting out Dan. Sorry, no offense to Dan, but Dan was up and about and beating his chest, and that's an easy vote, right? AJ seemed very humble and nice, and seemed lovely, and I'm sure it was emotionally difficult.
Yeah, I mean, he hadn't wronged any of us. I guess we were making decisions based on who's wronged us and who, we had very much had that virtuous approach at that point in the game of who's going to be genuine and upfront and honest, and he hadn't gone against that. So that was the point where our decision making was being challenged, I think.
And you then get into the merge, and I think now the challenges really begin. It starts getting dark, but the day is nowhere near over, and you take this merge is incredibly messy, not just in the context of all the numbers and votes and all the idle plays that are going to come out in a moment, but also the milkshakes that you had to consume for this challenge, which you almost win against your meat shield. They have to go to the photo finish. Did you feel? Look, I believe they checked the camera. The outcome's the outcome. But did you feel was that a hard loss to be so close to that first victory?
It was actually probably more so than is depicted because of a few things. I guess when I was young and I used to watch Survivor, when you're a kid and you're they're eating pig's eyes or whatever. I was always looking at that and thinking, yeah, I could do that. It's only to win. I'm not gonna. And I've always had a really good stomach, so I don't know. I was always just watching US Survivor and just being bring it on. I can do that. So as soon as I heard that it was a food challenge, I was stoked. I was pumped and I was ready to win because I was just going to put whatever was in front of me in me. Like that's just how I would. Yeah. And so I was really annoyed that I didn't win it with myself. But I was really thankful for the fierce competition. And I think I was at that point in the game where I was like, cool, we've made merge. I'm going to start trying to win these challenges. Like I want to kick it into a next gear and I want to play harder. And I just wasn't prepared for the fierce competition that was also with me in that merge. So,
And look, I would say that you did an incredible job. Obviously you had no issue with the disgusting parts. Other people were gagging, but still trying, but gagging. Keegan declared no parts, and the ultimate, at the end of the day, a man just, in all sense of the words, generally has a bigger mouth and also a bigger throat, and ultimately, he could get more down his gullet quicker than you could. Like that's.
Maybe,
and you were
yeah.
this close, and you're still just this close, like.
Yeah. I remember, by the way, and Keegan probably feels this too, but I was having the worst burps for the rest of the night after that. Like, I don't know how, but that combination of food, all I could taste was like really bad hamburgers for the rest of the night. And yeah, I'll never forget that.
There's some good comments here that I just want to bring up. Keegan, in response to mine, just says, I definitely have a big mouth.
I was going to say that, but I'm glad he did.
Joshua, who is, I think, a first-time commenter on our program, should be part of the backyard community, has said that food challenges are 10 out of 10, so ridiculous. I also like them, Josh. And Kyle, we all love Kyle, has said we were robbed of a scene where Jay tells someone to get wrecked. Is get wrecked? You said it before, and that's what it's referring to. Is this a common catchphrase for you that maybe they are sad that you did on camera?
Maybe. No, I don't think so. I don't know, but it would have been funny to see me do it, I guess. So
you did have this iconic one at the start, so that was good.
Oh, what was that? I don't even remember that.
That was like, I'm going to get the meat shield, and then I win my way to the money, and you do like a money thing.
Hey, yeah, cool. That sounds familiar. Yeah.
Okay, so this tribal council is, we discussed it last week, certainly the most interesting merge tribal of all the 11 LRGs, probably the most interesting tribal of any of the LRGs. What incredible chaos. Ultimately, for those who haven't refreshed themselves immediately on the season or our show last week, you've just got two different merge tribes. You've got one of 5 and one of 6. They all come from different mixes of different tribes. AJ himself is sort of in the middle, so it's actually more like a 4, 5 and a 1, 4, 6 and a 1, because AJ left, was given all the love on the way out, and maybe he's coming back to you, maybe he's not. You've got the blue, you've got 3 blues, you've got all 4 original greens. There's only 1 pink, so Mitch is a bit on his own. You've also got at this point 2 yellows, I believe, 3 yellows. So there's a whole mix of different relationships that have developed over the day. Other than Tennille, how comfortable did you feel with any of these people?
I think at that point, it was just Tennille, and I think just my ride or dies. I don't know, like I recognize like how complicated that merge was too, and I'm really thankful for Brian and Kyle putting in the time to do the inside the urn as well. I think at that point, like, when you're playing the game, you have an idea of what might be going on. You never have a full picture. And then the edit would always try and capture what might have been going on too. But it's hard when, I guess, 'cause, like, we recognize that this is the second time that Backyard Survivor had tried to put a season together. The second time that people over here in Perth had attempted anything like this. And we were still learning that for the game to be, I guess, like producible, we needed to capture everything on camera. And I realized, and I think Brian and Kyle also realized after the fact, that we did miss a lot of things. Like there was things, unfortunately, just not told, like spoken about in confessionals enough, or captured on film for the viewers to really follow what was going on. So I just wanted to take a moment and recognize that they did a really great job to still make it viewable by producing inside the urn and like really spelling that out. I think they did a really great job.
They do a great job with it. I hear. I don't watch Inside the Urn, as I've said on this show regularly, because I like to speculate wildly about what people were doing. And because that's the show as well. I do appreciate everything you're saying. That not everything gets captured. You don't have a million camera people getting all the. I know these days a lot of these shows have a lot of crew, but back in the day it was more limited. You can't ensure you capture everything when you're playing the game. As much as you care about the edit and the show and whatever, you're more focused on trying to survive. So if there's no one around and you're doing a crucial deal, you don't go, oh, hang on a minute, we can't make this crucial deal because there's no camera here. Like, you don't care. You got to get to the next round. Got to get to the end. So I think everything you say is right, but equally I think enough of it was there to make it entertaining, because frankly the best, you don't want to go, and the real show does this. The real show generally tries to present this is the boot and this is maybe also the boot, and so you don't know, but you don't want to know what's going in. That's what makes tribal counts exciting. I often find tribal counts very boring, even in the real show.
Yes.
But here it was exciting. So let's just get into it a bit, just to flag something important that I didn't mention for those that haven't rewatched it in a while. Tennille had found an idol while on the swap tribe and had shared with Jay that she'd found it. And then while you were just happening to sit on a pallet, you found an idol. You found a clue first. That's right. You got very lucky.
Yeah.
In the merge feast, you found the clue directing you to the pallet. How exciting of a moment was it to be in Survivor at the merge feast and find the clue to the idol? Have you always now had a forever love for those chocolate rolled up stick things?
I do genuinely love them. But yeah, that was, oh my gosh, I loved that scene. The panic that was within me and trying to stay cool on the exterior whilst I realized I need to grab this, and trying to make it like why is she grabbing so many? Yeah, so I just sort of was like, oh, I love these, and grabbed more. But I was certain that someone would have seen it because it was like the middle of the feast, and I guess everyone was just so stoked to have food and drinks available at that time of the night, and I can't believe I got away with it. I was stoked. It was definitely a Survivor milestone, one to tick off the list. I was pretty happy.
And how lovely is it that you had at the time an ally so strong in Tennille that you found it, and you've got someone that you feel so comfortable with that you can share it with her. She's the only one I believe you shared it with, unless there was something not shown in the edit. And then the two of you go to the palette so you can find the idol together. You already know about her idol. You must have felt on top of the world with these idols and this alliance at the time. Little do you know this is all going to go pear-shaped in about 5 minutes. But at the time, You must have felt on top of the world.
I think we did. Yeah, I think we were just feeling really good. Oh my gosh, we're doing it. We're playing Survivor and we're doing a pretty good job of it considering we've got idols. Yeah, I think we're just really enjoying that.
So we walk into, and this is we're talking about pear-shaped, and really begin your underdog story as that perseveres throughout the rest of the merge in your story. In the tribal council, Stephen plays his idol for Mitch. That is because Keegan has fed the concept of voting for Mitch to the green-blue conglomerate, and then told Stephen to play his idol on Mitch. I just love that Keegan didn't play his idol on Mitch. He got Stephen to play his on Mitch instead. But of course, Keegan couldn't play double agent if he'd played his on Mitch. And he also wanted to keep his a secret. But that happens, and so Tennille goes, oh, well, now Jess is in trouble, because I think everyone could just sort of guess that's probably going to be the target, the biggest personality in your alliance. And so she plays it on Jess. And when I watched this the first time, my notes actually say, and then Jay just blows her idol for no good reason. That's what they say before the votes are read, of course. So you were there, but you knew more than me. What told you that it was essential that you play this idol on yourself?
I think it felt like I was close to Jess. So if Jess was had an immunity, was safe from the vote, then where would the next sort of votes get flung? I just felt like I'd rather be embarrassed about playing an idol that didn't need to be played than like voted out, I guess. I guess it was a little bit of paranoia, a little bit of like playing it safe, a little bit of like an educated guess.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. Like to be honest with you, I had forgotten that that even happened until I watched the recap last week. I was talking to, I think it was Brian or Zach or someone recently, and being like, yeah, I had to go back and rewatch that tribal because I had forgotten that I played an idol for myself successfully. And I guess that just speaks to how, I don't know, like how I've processed the game since it happened. Like I've
Mm.
felt very much like I played a low key game, and that maybe um, I don't know, like I kind of over time wasn't sure if I even deserved my win for a while. And so in my mind, maybe I've done a little bit of like forgetting the things that I did well and doubting myself. So I don't know, like it was nice to go back and be like, oh yeah, I did a pretty cool thing. That was awesome.
Well, I hope what this is showing you is that you absolutely deserve to win and you played a fantastic game. We're only at the merge vote here where you've just nullified 5 votes on yourself with the correct idol play. But there's been plenty that we've talked about, even in the pre-merge, and for all intents and purposes, pre-merge is irrelevant, but the plans you're making, the moves that you're making that set yourself up to survive those phases, that set yourself up to be in a good position here.
Mm.
You were playing a strong game from the day dot. You weren't ever in any danger up until this point. That wasn't even
Mm.
a possibility on either
Mm.
tribe. Even if you had mutinied, you were thinking about doing the mutiny. But I do understand where you're coming from, because it's actually an incredible game that you played, where somehow you threaded the needle of playing a strong game where you did things and you made moves and you had alliances, and you broke alliances and you did what you needed to do, and you had an direct outcome, direct causation on the outcome of events. But at the same time, no one was sort of looking at you like that. Well, at the same time, people kept talking about why you were a threat. So there was sort of these merged perceptions of what Jay was as a player in the game. That's the vibe that comes off the screen. That I get it. And I think it's a factor of being that game associated with everyone else around you who are just bigger. I'm not saying they're
Mm.
better. They're just bigger. Keegan, Jess, John, Stephen, they're all just so big, both in the sense of their personalities, but also in the quality of game they were separately playing, that maybe you feel overshadowed. But ultimately, those sorts of games never win. There's the other game that you played is the elite winner game. So I don't think you should ever feel that you're some sort of pretender in the way you've won this game.
No, yeah, thank you for saying that. I think that, well, I also want to thank Brian and Kyle and their edit of my game as well, because that definitely helped. But I think that maybe it comes back to me wanting to go into the game and basically be everything that Keegan was able to achieve, like a really big, really smart, really savvy, really like gritty player. Like he was playing the game, he was having those big chats. And I watched Survivor just being like, yeah, that's going to be me. But you don't know until you play what sort of player you'll be. And so I found myself being this sort of like intentionally, I wanted to be a low level, like not a big person. Obviously, I wanted that meat shield and that sort of thing. But I also wanted to be playing hard. And maybe, yeah, maybe that's just me grappling with how I came out versus how I wanted to go in. Interestingly, I think this was the part of the game where, like, I've since found out that Claudia was very like onto me. She was
Yep.
kind of the one that was like, Jay is a threat. She's going to win this game. We need to get her out. And I had no idea that was going on. and so she let me know afterwards that she kind of saw that coming. She saw the writing on the wall. She believed in me more than I did at that time in the game, I think. So,
well, at this time in the game, you would feel a bit low because despite this successful idle play, I'll have to do the numbers on this, and I will. But I would believe this is equal with the nullification that Stephen has just caused on Mitch. But I believe this is the most votes that an idol has successfully nullified in any of the 11 LRGs. I have to fact check that. I'm not 100% sure, but certainly the ones we've watched to date. So you're in a situation, you're in elite company regardless, and it's all gone wonderfully, except that by consequences of this, there's a revote and you lose your best ally, the person you can rely on more than anything. And that, you know, I don't expect you to watch my season, but that's what happened to me at the merge. Not by such ridiculous circumstances, but I lost Max, who I could, you know, we had an alliance over like a nod, you know, and it was just locked in from day one, right? So when you've got that person and you lose them, you do feel very alone. I know how that felt, and I felt I was done for, and I was done for. I go very soon after that. Now you managed to survive, but you certainly come back to the tribal council feeling like I'm done. Like it's got 5 votes. Tennille's gone. It's over for me.
It was such a low point in the game. Yeah, I was so sad, and I think part of me was feeling responsible for it. Like I had an idol. Obviously, I used it to save myself, but in doing so, you know, lost my greatest ally, and you know, it sucked. I think there was a part of the game where I was just going over like, how could we have done that differently? What could have gone differently? Because it was just, and I think also it's always just really dissatisfying for someone to go from a shrapnel vote, you know, like it's really sad. Like I feel like if I ever got voted out that way, I would be really frustrated and really disappointed with that. Like if you're going to vote someone out, vote them out because they were your first pick. And I thought that Tennille deserved a much more, I don't know, bigger battle to get her out. I was just disappointed and sad for her, but obviously sad for me too, because I felt like I was, you know, out by myself in the big wide world at that point, having to start again maybe.
It sounds like you had a little survivor's guilt about the situation.
Yeah, truly. Yeah. I talk about this a fair bit, actually, survivor's guilt, especially winners' survivor's guilt too, but maybe we'll talk about that later.
You do, though, get on with it. And at this point, you start having conversations with Stephen, and Stephen is telling everyone what he wants them to hear, which, you know, from what we can tell from the edit, you and Jess don't sort of work out till much later. If that was correct, what was it about Stephen's approach, if you recall, that made you believe he was not a schemy bastard and was genuine in his approaches?
I don't know. I can't remember now. I don't think I even remember that part of the game. Yeah, I'm sorry I can't answer that one.
That's fine. They made the edit of Stephen to be so sinister that, like, you know, it's how is anyone buying this? But I think it's just because he's giving you such a different vibe in his confession to what he was doing, which, as I said last week, I adore. I love the game that Stephen played.
Yes.
He deserved more votes, but he had a horrible final tribal council, and the jury was going to vote for someone they really liked, probably in the end of the day. So, you know, it is what it is. But he's playing with them, and this is where you decide to turn up the heat on Keegan. You mentioned earlier, we didn't see it in the edit, that you felt him out a bit about the idol that he found way back on OG Blue, and here you go at it again, and you say to him that I know you got the idol. Jake saw you get the idol, not Tennille, which I want to ask about. And everyone knows about it. Everyone's sus, and they're coming for you. He does actually an incredible acting job here of pretending like, I don't have the idol, and now they're all targeting me, and I don't, you know, what am I going to do? What was the approach? What was your, you know, objective with that conversation? We were discussing it last week, and we couldn't really get to the thinking of what you were trying to achieve, perhaps.
Totally. Yeah. I remember you bringing it up and me thinking to myself, why did I do that? I don't know. I think my best guess at why I was doing that might have been jury management. Maybe it was just trying to, like, at that point of the game, we were getting really tired. We were like, our brains were scattered. I think I was just doing my best to minimize any impact that it could come back and bite me later on in any ways that I could anticipate or not. And so, I don't know if Tennille would have appreciated me sharing that. I don't know, like, it just felt like it was going to be far less drama if I just threw it like that sort of on Jake. Yeah, totally safer. Or maybe I could just say that my allyship to Tennille runs beyond even within the game. That would be a great answer too.
Yes. And or you could adopt what I think either Danny or Jules put onto you last week, that you were giving yourself a level of plausible deniability, in that you're saying to Keegan, I think you have the idol because Jake told me he saw you get it. And then Keegan says, no, he didn't see me. What? Like, I don't have the idol. And then you can go, okay, fair. I believe you, Keegan, right? But if you say Tennille saw you, I don't think he buys that you think Tennille was lying. Like, you could think he would buy that you think Jake is lying.
Absolutely. Like, giving him an out definitely helps to manage that relationship. Because I'm not a confrontational person. I hate confronting people, and I would always love to give people an out so that they still feel like if they lie to me, that I'm buying it, I guess, if that makes sense. So I think more so the way I was playing that sort of part of the game was to gauge his reaction rather than to fully buy his response. Like, I was reading between the lines a lot more than actually like taking his words like at gospel, if that makes sense.
Can you recall if you doubted whether he had the idol from that conversation? Because while you believe Tennille, there's always the chance that Tennille was mistaken. So you don't think Tennille was lying to you, but she thinks she saw him find the idol. She thinks she saw him put something in his pocket. It is possible to make a mistake. So you could think that line of reasoning if Keegan is convincing enough.
I guess. I think at that point in the game, like, there'd been enough doubt sown with like surrounding that idol and Keegan that I don't think I was ever going to fully trust him again. Like, regardless of the truth of the situation, I was going off of how do I feel about this person and how much can I feel that I trust them. And I think too much doubt had been sown at that point for me to ever fully just be like, yep, cool, we're back. Like, it's you and me until the end kind of thing. Yeah.
I just want to bring up a couple of comments. Kyle still says he loves these every time he sees those wafers.
I love these.
And Zach, star of season 3, wants to know who came up with the horrible Boner tribe name and wants to hold them accountable. Do you recall that from 6 years ago?
Oh, I don't know. I can't even remember. I'll probably have to go back and watch that first episode, to be honest. But there was something about like 4-letter words, or I don't know. But
was it supposed to be Boner? You said it as Boner when you got to the original mats. Not you necessarily. I'm not sure who from Blue said the actual name.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it was ever meant to be Boner. That's definitely wasn't what we were aiming for. Yeah. I don't know. Honestly, like, maybe I'll go back and have a look. Maybe Keegan remembers too. I'm really thankful that you're talking to Keegan later, because he might be able to fill in all of the gaps in my memory.
Keegan, tell us next week or tell us on this chat. My money's on Jake, just FYI. Sorry, Jake. We get to Jake. Look, I don't know anything about Jake except I watch on the screen, and I think Jake would be loving the amount of times I mention his name for a pre-merger on this season. He's the kind of guy. The worst thing that could happen to Jake is the worst thing that could happen to me if I played is that I was nobody. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm big and go out early, but coming on and being nothing would have been the worst thing that would have happened to me. So that's how
I was thankful for him. Yeah, like, I think he's one of those players that you can't help but remember and love for just him being himself. Yeah. Truly a backyard survivor icon, that guy.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so this vote is you cop another 2 votes here. I just cut out the challenges. I want to show the challenge everyone. Hosts, what is your tribe name? Boner. But Boner. Bono, great. They try and change it, but it's Bono. We know. So in this vote, AJ cops it for being a bit of a flip-flopper on the prior vote, and no one knows who can trust him because he voted both ways in the votes, and he seems to have told people that, or at least they figured it out. You copped 2 votes from AJ and from Sarah. Did you think that, I don't know if you can recall this, but did you think that, I think you did think you were probably in some trouble. Now I'm asking you to remember specific votes of a number of votes where you thought you were in trouble. So this might be a bit challenging for the memory. But or were you quite confident that Stephen was buttering you up at this point? Keegan was still kind of seeming like he wanted to bring you back in. Jess was still there, of course, for you, as was Tristan. So you probably felt reasonably okay that it was going your way potentially over an AJ. Like there's no value in a Stephen, or maybe Stephen because he was on the original try, but a Keegan or a Stephen necessarily wanting to keep an AJ over you, perhaps.
Yeah, no, I felt okay. I think I was really just like relying on those relationships that I had with Jess and Keegan at that time. Tristan a little bit, but I don't recall feeling like fully solid, but I definitely like had him like in my peripheries as far as like, where are you going? Who are you voting for? And how can I work with you? So yeah, I think that was the point in the game where I was like, okay, I'm going to put my head down for a bit and just see how far I can make it last. At this point, I think there was a lot of just like, and perhaps this defined my post-merge approach was just, pivot as much as possible until I feel like I have like footing again. I'd lost my footing, obviously, and I just wanted to like pivot every vote, every like round to see how far I could take this thing.
How do you feel that it's at this point that the person you are and the loyalty that people have to you is what drives the wedge between Carle? It is what cuts the Carle leaf in the middle. It is the end of the kale. The fact is, John wants you gone, and Tristan and Jess do not. I think Sarah's happy for you to go as well. And basically, that's position, Jess and Tristan's loyalty to you against John and Sarah wanting to get rid of you, pretty much splits them here to a point they can never recover from. It almost recovers, but then Keegan like masterminds the whole thing to his advantage, only because of a double tribal. But before there was going to be a double tribal, double vote, your presence in this game is what splits those such tight OG4 apart, which is so interesting because of the way Green Blue came together in the merge. Appreciate John and Sarah went there. Do you look? I'm really putting something that I've seen in the game. This wasn't talked about in the game, but it's actually what happens here. Did you have this recollection, or do you see what I'm saying about how this fierce loyalty that 2 people have to you and the fierce threat that these other 2 think you are is what splits up something they had from like minute 1? How does that make you feel?
Wow. Yeah, look, I've never had anyone sort of put it to me that way, and I hadn't even thought about it myself. So yeah, that's an interesting way of thinking about it. I don't know. Again, like, cool, I guess, but like I struggle to like, I don't know, maybe like put myself in the position where like I'm like, yeah, I deserve that. I don't know. That's weird. Maybe I'll chew on that in the weeks to come and see how I feel about it. But
I'm not surprised. Look, to be honest, you deserve all of that from what I see and the conversation we've had for this last hour or so. You deserve those people's fierce loyalty, particularly the sort of people Jess and Tristan appear to be, loyal and genuine people themselves. And you deserve John and Sarah trying to get rid of you because you were a huge threat to win the game. So I feel you deserve everything you got from both sides, both as a player and as a person.
Yeah, maybe there's something in the fact that like going back to how I was saying that I just was ready to work with anyone and pivot as much as I could to survive. I think maybe there was something in that they were seeing and like happy to work with. Whereas I think like perhaps John and Sarah had a bit more like inflexibility about where they wanted to take the game, and they had. I got the sense that they really had like good footing and they had good ideas and like they were really just wanting to play hard. Whereas I think perhaps people were wanting to work with me because they knew I was just I was open to things. So maybe that's what it was. I don't know.
John did come across as fairly inflexible at this point. That's what Danny and Jules identified a lot last week from their perspective. This results in the double. Two people are going, and everyone freaks out. And this actually drives Blue and Green back together, and they agree on a 3-3-3 that's going to see a revote that will enable you to then vote out Claudia and Mitch. Unfortunately, Keegan's playing you all in what is an incredibly great game of 4D chess at 12 a.m. in the morning after a long day to put this plan in. Not only put down the excellent 3-3-3 plan, which is very good in its own right, but then to circumvent the 3-3 where you can. So he only loses Claudia, who he has the weakest relationship with in his alliance, and Tristan, with whom he has no relationship. Absolutely forwarding his game brilliantly, keeping you safe, which he wanted. You got one vote in this whole mess of a situation from Claudia, the person that always had your name on her lips. And she goes here, look, I don't know if we can talk about it too much unless you got something to say. I want to talk to Keegan a lot about it. It was his move.
Yeah,
I mentioned
please.
at the time, no one really understood what he'd actually pulled off. And he wasn't walking around telling everyone. And everyone's just like, oh, the votes. Because in something like that, the votes can get stuffed up. Someone makes a mistake. Someone votes for the wrong person. And it all goes to hell. That happens. So you're still safe. You're good. And now you know John's after you. And you've decided that 7 is an important number in Survivor. You're obviously a Survivor fan. You know the importance of 7. You're going to make a big move on this one. And it's the quiz. Are you much of a quiz person? You'd watched Backyard 1, obviously. Are you much of a quiz person? Or, and therefore, were you surprised with your poor performance here? Or was it you're just going to blame that on the late hour?
I'll blame it on the late hour, but I'll also blame it on the fact that I'm not a quiz person. In my personal life, I don't let myself go to quizzes because I'm just not a quiz person. So I've met so many other amazing people who seem to have just an encyclopedia of knowledge about Survivor in any form, but unfortunately that's not me. So yeah, I wasn't surprised. Tried my best, obviously, but yeah, wasn't surprised.
You did say at the start of this that this was 6 years ago, but in any event, your memory isn't like as strong as other people's might be. So I do appreciate that maybe that's not a quiz thing for you, so you don't win. That's fine. This one again, you cop votes. It's a 5-2 over you. John goes. Do I have who you got votes for from Sarah and John? Obviously. So again, at this point, as I say. What I talked about in that prior one has come to roost, though Tristan is gone now. But Jess is when Tristan went, Jess now looked at you, and you two became very close. You still had Keegan wanting to look after you. You had a lot of allies and people at this point. John, John's a big character. He's a big player. People find him inflexible. He goes. You walk into the final 6. Where Keegan wins immunity. It feels like, and I know I appreciate this might be difficult to remember, but it feels like to me that even though you keep copying votes, like you keep copying the 2 votes, we got a 1 vote. Like every time you go to trouble, you see votes, right, for your name. You come out of your underdog position a bit, and it feels like going into this final 6, you're in a good position because Jess is still there. Keegan's still there. I know you might be unsure on Keegan, but he's been good to his word recently. Stephen was spending time butting you up, and then you've got Mitch and Sarah as the other 2 who perhaps ones you didn't have such a relationship with. But the numbers feel like they're there. Were you starting to feel a bit more confident as you got into the final 6?
Yeah, I think I'd moved past that sort of. I think I'd started to just grab my footing again a little bit, and to have to kind of redefine who I was like relying the most on. I guess I got to a point where, yeah, like you said, Jess and I started to be there for each other, and I felt like even though I still had my doubts about Keegan, like he was still someone that I was going to and just checking in with. So I definitely started to feel like, okay, cool, like I've got enough, but I also remember at that point starting to feel more worried than ever because, like you said, there was just like this continuous like 1 or 2 votes that were coming
Mm.
my way, and I just wasn't sure. I couldn't be certain who that was coming from. Obviously, you can see it in the edit, but yeah, I was just kind of like, what's going on, and how come I keep getting these votes? So I was kind of, again, coming back to just what can I do this round to stay afloat each time.
It's very easy in Survivor to say, I didn't vote for you. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's pretty obvious, but in this game, none of these votes are obvious. I don't think anyone came back from any of these votes certain about what people had done unless they actually said that's what I did. So certainly, and you keep getting them like, am I voting out the people that are voting for me, or am I voting out the wrong people? You don't know.
Yeah.
But you go into, okay, there's a question from Zach. Was there a time before this where you thought you were genuinely going home, before you started getting your footing again, when you were getting these 1 or 2 votes, a lot of these tribal councils, did you actually think, like when your name came up, did you think, oh, this is it, I'm done? Or did you generally feel like, no, I can trust the people that have given me their word at the time?
I think every vote passed Neil going home. I wasn't sure what was going on. So, as in, I wasn't sure if I was going home. And I think it was just mostly also because I had used that idol and I didn't have something to keep me safe. Perhaps if I had an idol, if I had an endless, bottomless bag of idols, I might have played them, every round, because I was just starting to feel so unstable and so unsafe. But I guess, like, well, I actually don't know. I don't know if I can answer that question, because I might have to rewatch the season to really remember how I was feeling each vote after Tennille left.
I'll just skip past Sarah's vote because you don't really have much to do with it. You and Jess vote for her. There is a brief discussion of a girls thing, but I don't think either of you thought that Sarah was going to actually be working with the two of you, particularly Jess. I think her and Jess felt pretty burnt by each other at that point. So that happens, and we get to the final 4. And we talked a lot about last week what Keegan could have done to have actually perhaps got to the end. And it was a strong view of the ORCA crew that he should have kept Jess in the game here and voted out Sarah. And we'll talk a bit about those what ifs in a moment. But you go to the challenge, you've got to build the blocks. Let's talk about this moment. What a moment for you. You build such an incredible tower that it stands for minutes after the challenge is over. If not for you knocking it down, it might have stood for the rest of time. And when you win the challenge, there is such a human moment of relief and excitement and release, knowing that you go into the final 3, of course. Absolutely magnificent LRG television. It's reflective of the real game, where someone who plays for 30 days or 40 days realizes they've won the challenge and they're into Final Tribal Council. I think the only reason why this was so good here, I'm not saying it's not always good, but because it did seem like such an incredibly long day, it must have been so draining. So it was more like playing for 30 days because you played for 18 or 19 hours without stop. What was that moment like?
Well, I guess before talking about that in depth, I think it's just amazing that, you've got so many hours of so much footage, and Brian and Kyle were able to put this together in a way that was so thematically impactful. So again, like, kudos to them for the production, editing. It was amazing. And yeah, I'm thankful, obviously, because it helped the audience sort of get to know what I was going through. But yeah, I think it also, just for the overall season, had a pretty good impact. So yeah, I think what was going on for me at that point was that I just really wanted to win. I really wanted to win a challenge. And ever since the merge, I was just like trying so desperately. And for whatever reason, like, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Like, and that was just one of those things. I was like, I really want to win a challenge. And I guess the fact that I got so close and then never succeeded, but then succeeded in the final hours, was kind of, I guess it was another thing that really made my game. But it obviously impacted me so much that I was exhausted and I'd achieved a goal. I really wanted to win a challenge and I had just done it. And then I think I just realized what it meant overall. Um, After like seeing so many of my allies go and feeling like a couple of times just like I'd had the rug pulled out from under me, to then have this one thing that I kind of could stand on so late in the game, like, cool, I have some stability, cool, I have some footing, and I have some agency again. Yeah, I just think I really needed it, and I'm really glad that it happened that way for sure.
And now I'm going to get into all hypotheticals because, it's fascinating. Number one, if you don't win that challenge, did you feel like you were going to go out?
I think if I didn't win it, then the people remaining were, I can't speak for them honestly, but the sense that I got and the feeling that I got is that it would have been nice to not have me around after that. Mostly because the votes were kind of coming my way a little bit. So I don't know. Yeah. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I think that Stephen and Keegan would have voted you out unless they decided to go at each other. And we will ask Stephen and Keegan when we speak with them about it. But
yeah, I'd love to hear what they have to say.
I think you're too much of a threat to leave in the game at that point. I guess the other question then I want to ask is if let's say it had been if Jess had been there at the end, and she should have been, like from Keegan's point of view, and you win, should we still voting out Keegan in that scenario, or is Jess too threatening to take to the end? She was a close. Look, to be honest, you don't have to answer this question if you don't want, because this is a very hard. You're probably still great friends for Jess, and it's very hard to answer the question. Would I have taken?
I'll answer it.
Of course I would. Why not?
Yeah. Look, I think at that point, so say if I win and Jess is still there, I take her to the end, but I don't think I win because I think that her gameplay would have overshadowed mine. But I think also I would have been completely okay with that. I would have been so thrilled to be at the end with Jess. Yeah, I don't know. I think that, I think I stand by that answer.
And so you're probably both voting for Keegan still?
I think so. Yeah.
And let's talk about voting out Keegan there. You go into a bit of a chat with Sarah and Stephen about how, offended you are by the fact that he had this idol that he didn't tell you about, despite your questioning, and now you can't trust him, and you're basically just giving yourself reasons to vote him out because he needs to go because he might win. But was that just like for the sake of the conversation of the three of you and perhaps your own moral justifications? But did you really care that he'd had that idol, and you knew about it? For the truth of it, you probably enjoyed the justification that you were right. Tennille told you, and she was right, and you were right.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe it was a little bit of justification for sure, but I also think that at that point, a lot of us had cottoned on to how much of a threat he was, although not to the full extent until we actually watched the show back.
Yeah, okay.
He was, oh my God, he's such a great player. And I'm just so glad that I had a chance to play with him because, he played it so well. But yeah, I didn't realize that. So your gut can tell you so much, but I'm just so glad that I trusted mine because, he was playing harder than I anticipated. As far as kind of giving myself a reason or an out or an excuse to not bring him with us, I think there were a lot of conversations with that. There were a lot of conversations with different people about reasons why I could and should bring people and not others. So, but again, that was I don't know what time that would have been, but I think we were just fried at that point. We were so out of it. So those conversations were just sort of using the last few, battery bars of our brain.
You go in and look, and you're completely justified for whatever you said about Keegan because he was having a little conniption in confessional about how dare you not tell him about your idol and Tennille not tell him about
true.
when he's like secret, like constantly lying about his. So like he was being.
I was like watching that back, and I was like, "You started it, Keegan."
You did. You started it. Okay, so we've got the jury, and we talked, myself and Danny and Jules, about how fantastic this final tribal council is. I do think this more than a lot of the ones we've looked at so far. Though Backyard 1 was very much anyone's game. But that's because all three of them had played the exact same game. So who knew who was going to vote for who? They were almost indistinguishable in the games the three, Tyrone, Sally, and Amy, played. Here, the games were very distinguishable. But I do think that it felt like, from an edit point of view, and just if I'd been there on the day, that any person could win this final tribal. Each person had merits and things they could say that were good about their game. Your approach was so, I think the best word I can put is human, and the way you spoke was so genuine that I felt you just connected with the jury in a way that Sarah and Stephen were not doing. They were more about I did X or I did Y, and in some cases not perhaps elaborating well enough on that. But you were just making these statements that felt from the heart and honest. And I think that's not always going to win with every jury, but I do think the people that you had on this jury, that was going to resonate with, particularly the ones that were actually sitting there. I've got my opinion on the ones that didn't show up, but the ones that were actually sitting there who'd also gone through this 19, 20-hour ordeal to some extent, a similar, but maybe not the full extent that you did. Was that something you planned beforehand? Was that something you planned going in? Did that just come out of you at the time? Where did that approach come from?
Well, I certainly went into that final tribal just not convinced that I wasn't certain where the votes were going to go, and I wasn't sure if I even stood a chance. I knew that certain people were going to vote for Stephen, and that was kind of more polarizing. But bringing Sarah along, I wasn't sure how similar our games had been, because I didn't really have much to do with her really. So I kind of went in just humble, I guess. And I also think that I was really impacted by the history of the game and maybe the shadow of Jess and Tennille, in the sense of this real being sincere and being authentic and open with people. So that kind of stuck with me in some way. I think that really showed when I was talking at that final tribal. Again, you recognized in last week's episode, I was so tired. We all were. And so I think part of it was just trying to not put my foot in it, because I knew that I probably could have done, being so tired. So I was trying to choose my words really wisely and really gently, and just doing our best to put forward a compelling argument. But I will say that it wasn't all, I wasn't all as good as maybe people interpret me. I think I was still playing strategically in that moment, and maybe recognizing where I would lose votes on that jury. And look, I might, instead of dancing around this, I might just go straight into it. I think there were questions that came my way from certain jury members where I was like, I'm not going to get your vote, so I might just pretend like you don't know what you're asking. And that, for example, that was John's question about, he said, at the start of the day, you said you didn't even know if you wanted to be here.
Yeah,
he was true. He was right. But I think the way that I answered his question was I'm so sorry, I don't even remember that. I did remember it. That was before the camera started rolling. We were all sort of waiting in the wings, and I was trying to underplay my threat and my interest in the game, and I was trying to just really make people think that I wasn't even here to play. And he remembered that, and he called me out on it, and I pretended like I had no idea what he was talking about, because I knew that that was even before the game started, and nobody would have even remembered or known about that. So, yeah, I was still being a bit conniving, I guess.
No, but even better, you then turn that answer. Oh, I'm tired. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm sorry that you felt that I didn't want to be here. I'm sorry if that's why we weren't able to connect properly because you thought that maybe I was thinking that way. But I absolutely wanted to be here. If you'd seen me when I won the last challenge and like then you would know that I would so you turned it onto it, then you try to connect. You're human. You responded humanly. You covered up your issue as well, which I didn't know until right now, which is fantastic. And then turned it into how about this other thing that I did as well that was so good that sort of makes that statement irrelevant.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, but I knew John was never going to vote for me, and so I was happy to sort of gaslight him a little bit in that moment. It was just like something I'm not proud of, but obviously, what I wanted to do to try and win. So,
thank you for that review. That's fascinating to hear. I love that. That was not something I was expecting. I thought he had generally misunderstood. Though Zach comes in and says, "Love the gaming" before the game has even begun. As far as I'm concerned, the minute I arrived at Melbourne Survivor, I was playing the game. Whether I could talk, we weren't allowed to talk to people for like an hour, but we were just sitting around an area, and just the looks or the interactions that are not verbal, I felt were part of the game. Everything, and I can tell you, I'm not the only one that felt that way. Like I've had these conversations with people. The game starts from the minute you start interacting with the players.
You lock eyes, and then absolutely. I think like the producers Brian and Kyle also realized that was probably the point where they realized we need to really separate our players before the game starts because we're not capturing all of those first impressions.
Keegan thinks the game begins as soon as you cast. That's when you get a pre-game, Keegan. It only applies in I think it only applies in All Stars or whatever. I don't think you should be I guess you got to mentally prepare yourself. Maybe that's what he means. You got to mentally prepare yourself for the game.
And physically, because he's such a beast on the challenges. So,
well, that's always been his downfall, to be honest. Actually, he's always too much of a threat. Coming into this, I just want to finish up. Now, I believe there was I think someone revealed last week in the chat, there was a live reveal on the day, and then there was a subsequent reveal. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about that a little bit because, it happened a little bit differently to what I think everyone was planning and hoping. If I remember correctly, we, at that early hours of the morning, we were even getting noise complaints from the neighbors. So we were really doing as much as we could to pivot and just get this season in the bag. So again, another really impressive effort from cast and crew to just sort of do the best to get it done. So I think we had, I think it was mentioned last week that we had people sharing their preferences for votes if they did have to leave. Keeping in mind it was I think it was a Sunday night and people had work the next day. So it was a huge ask to have people sticking around that late. So essentially the votes were collected, read that evening, and then we just really couldn't celebrate. We really couldn't do much other than call cut and finish. And I think that's probably why Brian and Kyle made the decision to sort of for the obviously the benefit of the show and the audience, kind of finish that up with a nice neat bow by recording a reveal again, in the light of day. So
I love that review. I love the glow. It's the traditional Survivor. It was great.
Yeah, but it was so weird to pretend that I didn't know what was going on.
Well, I didn't know. I've got in my notes. Did she know? Because your reaction to winning again seemed very genuine.
Oh, cool. Good acting, I guess.
I guess it's still a good feeling, but it's still a good feeling to know that you won, that you got more votes. Were you surprised by the vote count? Did you think Stephen would get more? Did you think you'd get more? It was a 6-4-3 in the end. or you just didn't know? Like, you think that's how it's going to go? Votes are going to spread.
I was surprised. I was surprised that I won. I was like genuinely shocked and like, what is this happening kind of thing. Though I did kind of come out of the like final tribal feeling like cool. Like I feel like I left it all on the court. Like I'm happy with how I did that, and maybe I do stand a chance. But yeah, you never really know until the votes are read. And I knew, like, I got this sense that at least there, like I think I already said, like there was some polarizing between Stephen's votes and mine. So I had that going for me a little bit. Yeah.
Well, look, you still talk a bit like you feel like you're a bit of a pretender winner, but I think that is nonsense. And you need. Look, I've watched a lot of these things, and I would tell you if I thought you weren't a very good winner. Like, I'm upfront with people.
Oh,
You,
cool.
I don't just butter everyone up. You are a fantastic winner. I think you feel this way because, yeah, if Jess gets there, then maybe she wins. Or if Keegan gets there, then maybe he wins. But that's Survivor. You need to not be the biggest threat, but you need to be the best threat who gets to the end. And you didn't ever have Stephen or Keegan on camera talking about you being a GOAT. I don't think Sarah was a GOAT. We talked about that last week. And certainly she got more votes than Stephen, so clearly not a GOAT. But no one was talking about you that way. You were talked about as a threat for a long time. You received votes for a long time. You just weren't ever the most pressing threat, which is the ideal perfect game. You had such an influence on the game the entire way through. You played all the way through. You were in challenges. You were, like, as you say, just missed out a number of times. You won the final one. You delivered the best final tribal council. I think that you should be incredibly proud of the game that you've played, and I'm so glad that, it's actually a bit funny, even with these LRGs, and to be honest, with a lot of the LRGs, which is actually a really great part of the community, is it is quite a progressive community, perhaps more than traditional Survivor, for example, but still, there's a lot more male winners than female, so there's only 3 female winners, so it's actually fantastic to have these women winners who are as strong and played as great of a game that you did. And I get what you're saying. You wanted to be a bigger player and whatever, things like that. But you mentioned Sandra, but your game is very similar to a Sandra game. Like, that is how often strong women play the game. It's very hard for a strong woman to play a game like Colby Donaldson would, that Keegan might try to play. Like, it's not viable in the way Survival works a lot of the time. But no one would accuse Sandra of being anything else but the queen and amazing and brilliant. And that's sort of what you did. You had an anyone but me thing. You had your close allies. They got taken from you. You were flexible where you needed to be. You were conniving where you needed to be, but you also were quite honest as well at the same time. Like, and the bigger threats just went first, and then you got to the end with people that, like, you know what? We want to vote for her over a Johnny Fairplay or a Lil or whatever.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you for saying that. I think, like, overall, I can see like how the different people that were in my season did impact my gameplay for the better. Like, even the people that were, adamantly against me, all the way through to the people who were my ride or die, like, all of that influenced how my game obviously looked, but also how I played the game too. So I'm really just thankful that we all got such, good representation on the screen. And I'm just really thankful that I got to play with such amazing people. And obviously this has since created this beautiful space in my life where I'm able to work towards the production of even bigger and better seasons. And to be honest, that's where my heart truly lies. I've just fallen in love with, like, being behind the scenes and creating the magic that so many people just like us love to watch. So yeah.
Well, we love that, and we do love the community that is formed around Australian Survivor LRGs, whether it's the individual communities around the particular seasons and the shows, or the broader community that's formed. It's really, like, we talk about how great it is on the show. That's why we make the show. That's why people come and watch the show live or watch it after. It's to support this amazingly inclusive and welcoming and beautiful community that is just filled with people from all different walks of life, coming together respectfully and with love for something that we all love, which is the game of Survivor. Thank you so much for coming on, Jay. I know, I don't know if you want me to say this, but you weren't super sure about it. But I think it's been a fantastic interview. You've been really great to have you here, and I would have been disappointed if you didn't come. So thank you so much. I want to thank everyone who watched live and commented live. It's always so great to have you watching with us and to be able to bring your comments in as we go. And equally to everyone that listens to this after, whether you watch it on a YouTube or you're listening it to a podcast after the fact, thank you so much for continuing to tune in. I'm loving bringing back these older seasons that didn't get the sort of media treatment that we now give to the big seasons that are made by the Australian LRG community. So thank you for being a part of it. We continue our coverage next week with Keegan. I'm very much looking forward to that, as I put out a final comment from Keegan, who says, Jay played brilliantly and should not doubt in any way that she's a deserving winner. I agree wholeheartedly. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jay, again. I'm just going to finish off now.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'll
just say thank you so much for having me. Yeah. And thank you for having such a beautiful focus on this season. It's been really amazing to relive this and rewatch it and have people chime in with their opinions. And I can't wait to see Keegan and the rest of the folks that you're having on. And yeah, it's just going to be lovely. So I can't wait. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Don't run off. And to everyone else, I will see you next week.